Have been up to a 5 lot today. We have been up to a 5 lot today on Max, so that's why we're getting a little bit more cash on this today. So $19,875 in profits today on Max, on Nasdaq, S&P, and oil, which is pretty good. Max closed off their buy trade because we're starting to look for a sell trade there. That's why that's just been closed off for a big buy trade off the 16100s up to the 16170s. Max added some liquidity at the highs of 16175, but never found a sell trigger, never managed to get into a sell trade off that 16175. So good trade for Max, very, very good, impressive trade outcomes. But let's go back to this concept, inventory transitions. It's a very, very important concept, of course. And it's all about reading the tape. So in other words, if I have a candle that looks like this, let's do a couple of obvious candles in terms of stories. And the candle looks like this. Candle looks like this. Candle looks like this. All of these stories, all of these have information for us, haven't they? Every single one of these candles has information for us. The first candle, of course, seems to be what we would call a withdrawal of liquidity, because on a candle by candle basis, this looks as if they're pulling away the liquidity on this candle to try and maybe close off the buyers, right? So this looks like a withdrawal of liquidity. It's a very dangerous candle to trade, but obviously if we get a big block lean right at the very, very, very top of it, it can still be used for a bit of short business coming in behind that big block lean. But it's a dangerous lean because they're pulling liquidity. So the overall shape of this market still seems on the face of it to be bullish, and we have to be very, very mindful of this. This candle, well, the size of the delta versus the size of the candle, that looks like it's something that's probably got some additional upside room to move. The challenge we've got with this candle, of course, is that the absorption is already visible. So when we see that absorption coming in, we can already start recognizing that this is a sell candle that's likely to be possibly tested and then sold into for what ultimately should become a very, very obvious dealer short. So there's a dealer short forming on this candle, isn't there? Would you all agree with those definitions? Would you all agree with those definitions, guys? Pretty obvious? Pretty obvious. Right, so if you agree with those definitions, what did the cash open have for us in terms of definitions on a candle by candlestick basis? Because if you can trade delta on a candle by candle basis, guys, my goodness, the world opens up to you as a trader. This is like the call by call basis. This is a 15-second chart, so there's a lot of detail in here, and it's fast money moving, guys. So when we look at the detail in this, does anybody see the narrative on the first candle? There doesn't seem to be a narrative on the first candle. There doesn't seem to be anything on that first candle that stands out from the delta. What about the second candle? What's your first thought about what is your first thought about the second candle? Ah, now that's interesting, Silver. Why would you think it's going higher? My first thought is that the delta's made a new higher high, but the price hasn't. Yes? So the delta's made a new higher high, but the price hasn't made a new higher high. To me, this is a sell candle. Would you agree with that? Is that sensible? Is that something that you can all get behind in a trade narrative? So the amount of delta that's in this, the sheer amount of delta that's in this candle, the price getting jammed at the same price as it was jammed before at a lower price print, it looks like the dealers are selling the top ledge, yes or no? Is that a dealer sell trade? Yes, it is. It's a dealer short, isn't it? So it's a dealer short on the Nasdaq at the top line edges, which is really quite useful for us, because the interesting thing at that stage was Max was adding sell side liquidity, and you're like, no, surely not, that Max cannot be that good. That Max was adding sell side liquidity into that price area. Well, I'm afraid to disappoint you, but yes, Max was doing exactly that. And I'll show you Max, the signal that we were getting from Max at the time. This is also a 15-second chart, and I'll show you what Max was doing on a 15-second chart. This is what Max was doing at the cash open. Does everybody see Max selling into the top line liquidity, yes or no? You see how Max is adding in sell side orders at those higher prints. So Max is working into the sell side orders here. Max likes the idea of shorting off of these higher prints here. When it's grey, it normally means the price is going to go up for a squeeze. So that's why we know, that's why we've got different colours. Grey means that Max will try and take the price up into liquidity. That's why when we get the grey rising up into a red, for example, we get a really, really strong sell signal. But when we get a grey, we normally expect to be selling at higher prices. So we don't chase the market when we get grey. We wait for the market to come to us. So when I get a grey signal here, I don't start chasing this signal. I start selling at higher prices. Does that make sense to everybody why we would do that? So I sell at higher prices. So when we get grey here, I go back up again and I sell at higher prices again. Grey means that we use limit sells at higher prints. Absolutely. So that's what we do. We showed you this yesterday when we talked about the platinum signals. The grey drove up into a red signal, or the grey drove down into a green signal. You might remember we covered this yesterday in class. So this gives me an idea that this is a sell trade on Max. Okay, so we now think it's a sell trade on Max. But obviously, one of the things that we're still looking for is we're looking for that dealer participation in that sell. And now we're starting to recognize that we're getting exactly that. It's not just Max that's selling. The dealer selling is starting to show up at those higher prices. We're starting to recognize that dealers are taking advantage of those prints. What happens next? The price sells off and we make a fortune. Bearing in mind that I'd bought the bottom edge at start. I'd bought the bottom edge at the start of the day, with, along with, I think, Laurie bought the bottom edge as well when the market opened and it started to come down. I started to buy back in for the swing back up again off of those highs, off of those voltics there, and we bought into this down move, lent against that, took the market back up and saw the dealer selling, closed off the sell trade, the buy trade, and that was it for me. I basically rotated those two prices, made some really, really quick, fast money. That's a $500 swing inside of 15 seconds. Not for the faint-hearted, right? Not for the faint-hearted. So what happens next? Selling coming in on this candle here. We're not making new lower lows on the delta. We're not making new lower lows on price. So not really getting much of a storyline. So what happened on the next candle? Not very much information. What happened in this candle? Not an awful lot of information on that one, is there? What about this candle? What kind of information did you get on this candle, guys? Pretty crazy, right? The only unfortunate thing about this sell is it's already happened. All the buying that's coming in is getting absorbed, and it's not just getting absorbed, it's getting marked down, isn't it? It's already getting marked down, so you don't really have a huge luxury of waiting and leaning against an absorption. It's already happened, Gene, right? So you've got a decision to make. If you don't strike now, you're probably going to miss the deal. You'd love it to retest, but it's already done the test. It's already done the bit of business in the background. It's not like it's a brand new high of a day sort of thing. It's already done the test. It's already being absorbed. It's already being marked down. So the chances are that this candle will continue sell side almost immediately. And obviously the sell came in straight after that trade, and the market just plummeted off of those two sell prints at the top edges up here. Dealer longs turning into dealer shorts at the high prices, and you can see those dealer shorts at the high prices. Very, very evident, very obvious to notice it if you're switched on enough to a candle by candle basis. Now let's see what happened as we drove forward into the rest of the bottom edge here, because obviously we started to see some big activity at bottom prints. We started to see some interesting activity as we drove down into the lower lows. And as we started to work our way through this process here, we started to recognize, not an awful lot of interesting elements. We started to see some delta buyers that were still getting jammed at the top edge, and we would have thought we would have got a little bit more selling coming in here, for example. So it's only just starting to show up. So we're expecting to see a seller coming in at these low prints, and there it is. There's the sell at the low prints. That's what we were expecting to see. Why? Because you already seen the dealer selling coming in, correct? Does everybody see the dealer selling? So we already were able to recognize dealer selling coming in here. It's exactly the same, almost exactly the same candle as this one at the top edge. So we saw the dealer selling coming in. So we know that if we're going to try and buy this, it's going to be at lower prices. Fair enough. So that's what we got. We got the lower price. We got the volume increase. We got the huge volume candle. We got the leans. If you want to buy it, that's your candle. That's probably going to be your candle. But it's obviously going to be a lean against the market reversing out. You can't buy it on the way down, guys. That's never going to be the right trade, so you wait for another opportunity. There's the opportunity starting to show up. Now, obviously, we don't get any leans on that candle, and then we get an idea that this is now starting to basically just exhaust. So that's exhaustion now. And obviously, if you're going to buy it, you want to be in this trade ready to go, guys. You want to be in it fast, if you want to buy it. Why would you want to buy it? Well, of course, we could start to see some real cyclical bids. Now, some of you might be wondering about cyclical bids. Are they any use to us? Well, let's see if cyclicals helped us with this trade, guys. I love cyclicals. Silver, do you love cyclicals? I know Gene loves a cyclical. But who doesn't love cyclicals? Take a look and see whether the cyclicals gave us knowledge of the top line and the bottom line. You tell me, guys. You tell me whether the cyclicals had knowledge of a top line or a bottom line. Did the cyclicals know it? Did the cyclicals have you on board? Did the cyclicals tell you about that sell? Damn tootin' right. Did the cyclicals tell you about this bottom edge buy? Damn tootin' right they did. Cyclicals on top of the perfect trade structures, right? You can see that Max was selling the top edge with a cyclical divergence. Max was buying the bottom edge here. You can see the green line, buying the bottom edge here. The volume comes in. Max is a buyer of a bottom edge with a cyclical divergence. Perfect, right? So we can now recognize that we did want to buy the bottom edge. And obviously when we get the big delta candle into the bottom edges, we now start to recognize some opportunities to lean against those bottom prints. And that's what we're trying to take advantage of. We're trying to take advantage of those bottom prints. We've just had a buy trade. So let's catch up with the right-hand side, guys. Let's catch up with the right-hand side. So we've just had a buy trade on the cyclicals, for example. Okay, so as we get into the bottom edges here, one of the things we start recognizing is this phase here. Do you see this phase here? Is that a bullish trade here? Yes or no? It's very fast, isn't it? So we can already start recognizing that we've got a very big bullish opportunity to buy against these leans here. And that's something that we simply mark across our screens. We try and take advantage of to buy into that reversal narrative right there. Buying into that reversal storyline right there. Did we want to buy into it? It's 14.45. Well, yes, but there's going to be better to come because the buy reversed out on this candle here. So we would have been looking at this and saying, you know what, I'm going to book some money up here. I'm going to book some money up here. Why? Because, well, you can see the delta getting absorbed and the price reversing off that price. And that's the trade. That's the trade. So when we come back into the bottom edges here, we can start to recognize again, very, very nice buy reversal in terms of tape reading skills. We can this idea here is a very, very strong narrative here for a possible buy trade with some very nice ICE orders coming in. Very, very good opportunity to buy some stuff here. And then a nice little bit of a breaker here. Bit of value coming in, bit of volume coming in behind the move. Getting jammed a little bit at the top edge, so that's a little concern. But obviously from that buy trade there, we've been able to see a nice break to the upside. And obviously it's going with a very light liquidity on the upside. So a very, very strong buy side pop now for the most recent buy trade that we had in here. So that's pretty good business, isn't it? That's a pretty good bit of business right there. Buying off the 51s, trading a high price of the 220s is a 70-point move. 70 points is $1,400. What are the dealers doing? The dealers are still long, aren't they? Because you can see this sell candle here didn't really achieve anything. So the dealers must still be buying into this as a storyline. So on a candle by candle basis, you want to try and analyze and interpret every candle if you can. Try and put an arrow on every candle so that you can start to build a picture of whether you're accurate with your dealer buying or selling. And then try and overlay that with a value narrative. It's something that you can lean against, something you can understand, so that you start to get these processes right on a regular basis. We'll do that this afternoon in classroom, guys.